Hi, and welcome to Uncover Your Story, the podcast for creatives, changemakers, and big-hearted rebels who believe in the power of stories to inspire, connect, and make a difference. I'm your host, Sarah Orton, brand photographer, storyteller, and content creator. Whether you have a personal brand or you work for a non-profit focused on bringing positive impact to people's lives, the stories you tell can make all the difference. My mission is to empower you to share your story with conviction and joy and increase your impact in the world. So join me and my guests weekly to build your communications toolkit with actionable tips, strategies, and insights to uncover your full storytelling potential. So my guest today is Lara Shelldrake. She is a speaker, business mentor, community strategist, and the founder of Found and Flourish, which she describes as a platform and movement for those braving the world of entrepreneurship and who are striving to do better in a way that feels good. I actually joined Found and Flourish just over a year ago, which is how I met Lara, and I've found it an incredible place to network with other women who are running purpose-led businesses. There is a real wealth of experience and knowledge within the membership, with women who are really driven and passionate about what they do, but also incredibly supportive of each other and generous with sharing tips and advice. Lara is passionate about business, community, entrepreneurship, and navigating the balance of motherhood. She set up Found and Flourish when her son was 3 months old to offer the support, resources, and the connection that she craved herself. Impressively, in her first year of trading, Lara built this thriving community platform into a 6-figure business. She is on a mission to simplify the world of business and make community building accessible to everyone, alongside teaching the skills necessary to build a sustainable and profitable business. Lara has been featured in the likes of Forbes and Marie Claire and is cited as one of the most influential female founders by Startups magazine. She is one of those people who has a real fire in her belly. She uses her words, whether speaking at an event or through socials, to shake things up, inspire, and bring people along on the journey with her. I know we have so much to learn from Lara, and I can't wait to get started. Lara, welcome to Uncover Your Story.
Oh, thank you so much, Sarah. What a lovely introduction. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Right, so creative, changemaker, or big-hearted rebel? Which do you most resonate with?
I mean, all of them, but if I had to choose one, probably big-hearted rebel.
What words do you choose to live by?
This is a tough one, but probably in keeping with what we're doing right now, more money in the hands of good people means a better world for everyone.
If your life was a book, what would the title be?
Nice guys finish first.
I love it. What song gets you on the dance floor?
I think anything dancey, drum and bass, dubstep. One of my faves is probably Gold Dust by DJ Fresh.
Mm-hmm. And what's a daily ritual or habit you can't live without?
First thing I do when I wake up is have a green tea. Obviously, my routine in the morning is dependent on 2 little tiny humans. So the green tea is a non-negotiable, but then everything else is pretty much, down to what's going on that day and what mood my children are in. That and probably regular swims.
Yeah.
Need to go on my swims and beach walks.
Swims in the sea?
Yes, swims in the sea. Probably more dips in the sea.
Yeah.
Swims in our local pool.
Yeah, cool. Great, thanks. So now we're going to dig into your story. So it's clear from the way you show up in your business that you're a very grounded, compassionate and driven person. So can you tell us about your why? What drives you?
Yeah, so I think intrinsically we all have, motivators and values and a moral compass that doesn't often change. And if it does, it evolves, right? So I've always been someone who's been very passionate from a very young age when it comes to supporting people and helping others. And I always knew that when I got to this burnout stage in my corporate life, I knew I wanted to work with people and help them and, support them in some way. Obviously, supporting and helping people in itself doesn't pay the bills. Mm-hmm. And so something I'm really passionate about now, having evolved over the last however many years in my career and running my own business over the last 10 years, is this idea of really supporting people build for purpose and profit. Mm-hmm. We live in a world where now more than ever, we need a redistribution of wealth and power. And we're seeing a lot of impact-driven, good people build amazing, impactful, purposeful businesses, supporting planet and people, but actually neglecting the profit piece. So I think over the years, through my own experiences working with clients, running a community of thousands of women and non-binary people running their own businesses, and just seeing like the way the world is going, my biggest why at the moment is really supporting people with that profit and purpose piece. So, looking at how can we support people who are building a better world also make money, because money equals power. And if we can have more money in the hands of good people, like I said earlier, these words that I live by, then we have the power and the choice and the freedom in how we take action, who we work with, where we put our money in order to create a better world. Because everything we do and the actions we take and the money that we spend and where we spend it, all of that dictates the world that we're building. From, whether you decide to buy independently versus Temu and Amazon, or whether you decide to shop small and redistribute that wealth back into local communities, working with people and like, because you can afford to, rather than going for a cheaper option because you don't have the money or the choice. So it's all really linked, to be honest. That's probably a long-winded answer for you, but it's all about connecting purpose and profit.
Yeah. And like you say, so many people out there doing really driven by their purpose and really wanting to make a difference, but it's the trying to make the profit, which is the sort of mystery sometimes and the missing puzzle bit. So like your own journey from starting Found and Flourish while raising a newborn to growing a thriving community, and such a profitable one, is such a powerful story. Yeah. Can you share a bit more about this and how did you do it?
Yeah. So everyone's story is different. And I think, I'm happy to go into how I did it. But I think the most important thing here is to remember that when we're leading with impact and purpose, which is what I did for a lot of the start of my journey, when we had hit 6 figures, that was actually by accident. So happy to go into that as well. But I've always led with this idea of, well, I love what I do and it means so much. So, I can't charge that much for it. And people need this service. It's, it's like a service to the community. And therefore I shouldn't really be charging for it. There's a huge mindset shift there as well that needs to happen. But I think what's really important is understanding the value that you have to give. And for a very long time, I didn't fully understand the value I had to give, especially after just having a newborn, when I was questioning my self-worth at every opportunity. And so there are often days where I would be running the business and completely undercharging and undervaluing what I had to bring to the table, because I could see a need for it. And actually, that's even more reason to really value what you're doing, and also knowing what to charge for the right people, right?
Yeah.
So if you're working both with corporates or businesses and you've got a B2B and a B2C model within your business, then maybe you think, okay, I'm going to charge X amount for larger businesses because they can afford it, so that I can pay it forward and offer more affordable options for people who can't. So that's just like a little side note. But I got into personal debt building the business. I wasn't very smart with money. So when I first started, this is in the lead up to figuring out what it ended up being, because it was only when COVID happened that we launched the online platform that I then started to generate a regular income. So before then, I had kind of come up with this idea of a community that I so desperately needed, having run my own consultancy and being thrown into the new world of motherhood and not really knowing what to do or who to access in the way of support and skills and what resources I needed. I kind of created what I couldn't find, and that's where Found and Flourish kind of began.
Yeah.
And it started off as a community, events, meetups. It's not profitable to run events as a business. Everyone I know has said, they don't put on events to make money. And often when we run events, we contribute our proceeds we donate them to local charities or meaningful charities supporting the cause or the topic that we're talking about during the event. So when COVID happened and we were an events business, we obviously had to really rethink things. And people were saying, well, we still want to connect, we still want to talk, we still want to support one another. How can we do that? And so that's when the idea of the membership came about, and we started to bring everything online and really monetize the platform and the community that we had built. So from my own personal journey, I think that kind of shift was when people were saying, we need a membership, we need to be able to access stuff online. And I felt very conflicted charging for that access to the community.
Yeah.
But it was a mindset shift I had to make, because had I not, I wouldn't have been able to sustain the business and I wouldn't have been able to serve anyone. So that big mindset shift came from when I was basically thinking of it as a business rather than a community.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important mind. You know, anyone, whether you're freelance running a business, solopreneur, you are a business. You need to make money. You need to prioritize profit. Otherwise, you cannot sustain the effort, the energy, the input, the output to continue serving your community. So when I started to have that reframe of, you know, community into business, I started launching different tiers for the membership, charging for events, putting myself out there and actually like consulting again. Once I'd built up my confidence after having a baby, you know, you start questioning all sorts of things, including your self-worth. And that was something that definitely took me some time to rebuild. But if I was to make this sort of, not even advice, but this kind of experience of mine relevant to anyone else listening, you know, I think it's less about necessarily what I did, but the mindset shifts I had, and perhaps more of the practical elements of how can you prioritize building a profitable business. And one thing that was a big shift for me was working with my accountant, Caroline Boardman, who is amazing. And she implemented the profit first model. And this is created by a man called Mike McCowitz. Have you heard of it before?
No.
Okay, and he talks about prioritizing at least 5% of all the money you make into a profit pot, along with 50% salary to yourself, 25% max operating expenses. So when you look at the cost of what it takes to run your business, whether that's subscriptions, like freelancer fees, anything that you're paying for, like office rental or whatever, that shouldn't amount to more than 25% of your outgoings. And then 20% should be saved for tax. And so what you start to do by implementing this model is you immediately prioritize being a profitable business first. And then you've got that pot of money if you need to dip into it, if you want to pay yourself via dividends. Now, I'm not a financial expert or advisor, but from a practical element for anyone who's, you know, thinking of starting a business or running one, and they want to run a profitable one, I would 100% advise you look into the profit first model, because that was an absolute game changer for us.
And so you said that you became profitable almost by accident. So what did you mean by that then?
No, I think, but by accident was when we hit the 6-figure mark. I hadn't really realized how much money we were making and generating, but we had, you know, the launch of our online platform. So we were going from running events and not really monetizing anything that we're really doing to launching a platform with multiple tiers, with hundreds of members joining. We broke the website a number of times with people signing up, because we had doors opening and doors closing. So there was like this sense of urgency as well, which kind of created this excitement. People were comparing the experience to trying to get Glastonbury tickets. You know, it was an amazing buzz. And at the time, I was still very much like juggling a toddler, and we were in lockdown. And we had launched our online subscription, and we were doing lots of partnerships as well. So that with the client work, you know, we got to a point where we're like, oh my gosh, like this is working and we're making money and it's brilliant. And so, yeah, I think sometimes it's important to acknowledge things can happen, and it's only when they start happening to you, take stock and you're like, okay, so how has that happened and what's worked and what hasn't worked? And the profit first model is always something that I've implemented. But it was only really when I started to generate income from the community / business that I was taking it seriously as a business. And that's when I think, that is when I decided to go all in on that. Close my other consultancy and really focus on Found and Flourish, because I could see it was having impact. The community was growing, people were connecting, amazing things were happening. And I'm really glad I did. I know we'll probably talk about this in a bit, but there have been lots of ups and downs. Absolutely had moments in the last 6 months or year where I've questioned again, like, is this what I really want to do? I don't know if you want to talk about that now or you want to wait until a bit later, but happy to go into that as well.
Sure. Let's, before we go into that, let me just ask you about, so like many entrepreneurs, especially women, struggle with putting themselves out there and sharing their story. From your experience, what mindset shifts I guess you've already touched on this a bit, but I don't know if you've got anything else to add or practical strategies. Can you help people to move past self-doubt and confidently step into their personal brand story?
Yeah, I mean, could do a whole podcast on this question. I think being really clear on what you're good at is key. And I always get clients to have a look at their zone of genius. So Gay Hendricks writes an amazing book called The Big Leap, and he talks about the different zones. And often we find ourselves kind of subconsciously working in our zone of incompetence and competence and neglecting those areas where we're operating in that real zone of genius. Because when we run our own business, we wear 100 different hats. We have to be the accountant, the creative, the content creator, the social media person, the marketer. And that's before you've even actually like done the work that you're doing with your clients. And often that's when we're operating in those like zones of competence or even incompetence, where we're spending a lot of time doing things that are not in our zone of genius. And that does something really bad for our self-worth and confidence, because we're not aligning ourselves with the work that we do when we're in a state of flow. And so I always love to encourage people to do this exercise where they write down all the things that they do when they're in their zone of excellence and genius. And if you'd like a template for this, just Google The 4 Zones by Gay Hendricks. And there's a great exercise. You can do all those one on our website, foundflourish.co.uk. And really highlighting the areas of what we do and what we're really good at that people can't do as well as us is a really good starting point to focus on the things that we're really proud of being able to do, and also can confidently go into lead conversations with, talking about and focusing on. So that's the first thing, just having everything on paper and understanding. Like often, sometimes when we're doing the work and it doesn't feel like it's flowing, or we start to question our ability, that's usually because we're not doing the things that we are amazing at, because we're wearing 100 different hats. So acknowledging as well that it's okay not to be amazing and great at everything. Also, some great practical tips from the likes of Emma Gannon, who has written a brilliant book called The Multi-Hyphen Method. And she talks about having like a folder that you've saved of all the lovely things that people have said about you, working with you, the work that you've done, keep those receipts as proof. So when you have those moments of self-doubt or imposter syndrome creeps in, you can actually look at the facts in black and white where people have said you are brilliant at what you do. I think that's really key. Joining a community and immersing yourself in conversations with people who are at similar levels but also different levels, who actually get what it feels like to be self-employed and to have to sustain that self-worth and confidence that is required to show up on a daily basis and run your business. Because when you're having a bad day and you say that, there are always going to be people there to kind of boost and lift you up. And I think that's what's so amazing about being part of a community. You've probably seen it countless times in the Found and Flourish community. When someone says, I'm having a wobble, or I'm struggling with this, or imposter syndrome, people are just like there so quickly, giving their advice, saying me too, showing their solidarity, lots of practical kind of pieces there too that just let people know that they're not on their own and that there are things that they can do. And I think that's where community really comes into its own. It's that support system and network that a lot of people end up missing when they work for themselves, which is one of the reasons why Found and Flourish exists. So there are just a few examples of what you could do. But
that's great. Thank you. And this podcast is very much about how we use storytelling in business. And as you said, Found and Flourish is built on the idea of connection and support. Can you share how storytelling has played a role in fostering such a strong and engaged community?
Yes. And actually, I think that's part of the question you asked before that I didn't quite answer. I think what's really important about storytelling is understanding that no one else has your story. Your story is unique to you. And, we've got 8 billion people in the world. The likelihood of people doing similar things to you is very high. There will be people doing almost exactly the same thing as you. And what sets you apart is your story, is your belief system, are your values. So being really clear on what you believe and what your vision is for the world, like, that word's thrown about a lot, especially when you're asked to do a mission statement, your values, your vision. But your vision is actually one of the most underestimated, impactful pieces to focus on. Because when you talk about your vision for the world, you are not only incorporating storytelling, but you're talking about the why, the what, the who, everything. Because when you're clear on why you're doing what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and the vision you have for the world as a result of the work that you're doing, you're almost creating tangible results of how people can understand the purpose of what you do and how it will impact them. So I think really honing in on the vision piece is super key and super powerful, and not many people do that.
Yeah.
And when you can talk about that, there's a real connect that happens. And just going back to your most recent question, when it comes to storytelling and how that's allowed us to build and engage community, obviously our story's evolved as my mission has evolved. But by sharing that story, there are connection points. There's an opportunity for humans, like people, to connect with you on that human level. And the more confidently you can share your story with the real human elements that allow you to be vulnerable, the deeper a connection people are going to have with you. And I always talk about building a know, like, trust relationship. When you can create that know, like, trust with people through storytelling, you have super fans. We're not just talking about building a community, but you have a community of super fans who know you, like you, and trust you enough to want to be a part of whatever it is you're doing, whether that's an event you're promoting, a service you're launching, a community you're building, a movement you're making, and I think if we can really kind of hone in on how we can create or build on our story whilst implementing those elements of creating that know, like, trust, it allows for you to build a movement, create, build, grow a community. And that's exactly what we've done. And over the years, people will come to us and say, I've just joined your community. I saw your values, read your story, found it really inspiring, would love to be a part of that. And that's really powerful. And I honestly have lost count of the number of times that people have said that's why they've joined. So there's a real power there in sharing your story. And I think, when you can do that through podcasts like the one that you're launching, or through events or your newsletter writing, or even on social media, that's how you build that momentum. And I think it's about finding the right platforms that work for you based on how you like to show up in the world best, whether that is writing, audio, speaking, creating, hosting events, etc.
No, I think that's really good advice about finding the platform that's right for you and not feeling you've got to do what everyone else is doing.
All of it.
All of it. So touching on those things that you were talking about there, about how, your story evolves, and the more you can be open and share and be vulnerable and share those points of connection. Do you want to go into a bit more of your story? Like you were saying earlier, how has your story evolved, and what, you touched about the burnout and the challenges, and can you share a bit more about this?
So we've touched on why I started Found and Flourish, and obviously it was after I had my first child, who's now 7, and more recently I've had Bella, who's now 3, and I think we go through what's interesting, and I haven't really reflected on this before, but when you run a community, you really are like learning in the open, and you are exposed. So if you don't show up one week, or if you aren't able to fully embody what you're doing, like, people know, people take note, and people notice that. And so I guess I've been quite open about my journey and my story because I haven't had a choice. But also I feel like it's my responsibility running a community to be open and honest and authentic and all the things that we suggest people are. And you've got nowhere to hide. So I guess I'd see that as a blessing rather than a curse, because it has given me the opportunity to actually journal, for lack of a better phrase, and figure out in the open what my motivators are, both intrinsic and extrinsic, and also why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think what's important to me has never changed, but the way in which I've shown up in the world has. And for a very long time, we've been running a community for women and non-binary people, and they are always going to be my focus, because there is still a massive disparity and inequality in the world. but from like a gender perspective, a racial perspective, you know, an able-bodied disability perspective, like there is so much inequality that we still have so far to go. But my mission has evolved, and as I said at the beginning, we're talking about redistributing wealth and power. Most of the wealth and power, unfortunately, is in the hands of white men, and not only are they the problem, but they're also the solution. And for a very long time, I've been speaking to a sea of nodding heads, almost in an echo chamber of everyone going, yeah, agree, agree, agree. But we need men, we need male allies, and we need men on this journey with us to actually be a part of the solution. Otherwise, we're just going to find ourselves in an echo chamber forever. And so although the community is always going to have this like safe, sacred space for people in the minority and people who, you know, women, non-binary people, anyone who wants to be a part of that movement, we're kind of broadening out, especially with our event series, to have more men in the conversation, more men in the audience, more men on panels, more male partners, because we can learn a lot from them and we need them to work with us on this. So, I mean, if I take a step back slightly, last year, I mean, I feel like every year we've just had so much shit thrown at us, especially since COVID. It's like, oh, next year we better, next year we better, next year we better. You know, I remember when I was pregnant with Bella and everything was happening in the Taliban and Afghanistan. And then after that, it was the Russian-Ukraine war. And after that, it was October 7th. And it's just like every year, it's just wild how much we've been exposed to. And like so many people, I'm a massive empath. I really struggle. I don't disengage, so I have to engage. I have to see what's going on. I have to know how I can help. I'm not saying that I'm a doom scroller, but I can't turn away. And so I get quite engaged with things like this. And I got to a point last year where I fell into an empathic distress hole and I couldn't find a way out. I felt very depressed. I felt very disconnected with what I was doing. And I knew I wanted to do more, and I felt like I wasn't doing what I needed to do with the business that I was running. And so I made a very difficult decision to close it down. I'd written messages, I'd spoken to mentors, I'd spoken to people in the team. I'd literally drafted out messages to the members just to tell them that I was closing it down in a number of months. And I sat on that feeling for a while because it didn't quite feel right. It wasn't the right time. My partner had just been made redundant. There was a lot going on in the world. And I thought now is not the right time to do this because it just didn't feel right. It just didn't, so many reasons why it didn't feel right. And every time I kept having these conversations exploring whether this was the right thing to do, I still had this voice in the back of my head going, you don't want to do this. So I sat with this feeling for a while. And I think just through self-reflection, giving myself permission to step away from the business and the mission for a while, taking long walks, having, you know, to crying a lot and, you know, really sitting in the mud with everything. Simon Sinek has a great like talk that he gives about sometimes you just want to sit in the mud and have people sit in the mud with you. You don't want people solving problems. You just want to sit in the mud and just have an opportunity to kind of sit in that moment and feeling. And that's what I did. And I decided that I would start a movement called Give a Shit, which started as an event, #Gas Talks, Give a Shit Talks. And we raised almost £1,000 for medical aid for Palestinian people. And we talked about redistributing power and wealth and encouraging people to sell with confidence and show up and be driven by purpose and profit. And that was amazing. And I was like, yeah, maybe this is what I need to do. And then I came to the conclusion that actually what I needed to do was realign my mission with Found and Flourish, because I started to feel like they were two separate things. I started to feel really like called into the give a shit stuff. And I was like, but I don't recognize who I am anymore as a founder of Found and Flourish. And so I went from deciding to close a business down to, I guess, realigning my mission and bringing the give a shit movement into Found and Flourish. And it wasn't an overnight thing. It's taken me ages to get to this point. I invested in a program with an amazing sales coach who actually really helped me realign my messaging more than anything. Because again, going back to this power of storytelling, you will sell so much more effectively if you can tell your story effectively, because people connect, build that know, like, trust, And that's what you need in order to connect and convert. But for me, it wasn't even about like the selling. It was about getting super clear on how I show up in the world and what I'm actually providing as a service, as value. And so, yeah, I went from thinking that this wasn't the right direction for me to investing 5 figures into a rebrand. We're bringing both brands under one roof. I, flipped that kind of narrative and reframe from feeling helpless, not knowing what to do, and feeling like I just wasn't aligned with the business I was running anymore, to completely reconnecting my values and my mission to my actions. And therefore, naturally, like Found and Flourish has evolved and will evolve further as we start to relaunch the new brand. To be fully aligned with that messaging that I've kind of embodied around this idea of redistributing wealth and power, implementing this smart, not hard framework, where we really want to encourage people to be really smart about implementing processes and systems and automations. We genuinely believe that rest is a form of activism, but so is making a shit ton of money. And we believe you can do both if you're working smart, not hard. So by supporting people in implementing the right processes and automations and using AI where they can, they free up more time to participate in marches, be an activist, spend more time with their family, go on holiday, treat themselves, only work 2 days a week, whatever that might look like, So the mission's evolving all the time, but I'm so much clearer about this now, having been through that horrible 6 to 12 months of just this feeling of helplessness, sitting in the mud, questioning my purpose and my values and how I can realign those with my actions. And thankfully I did. And now I'm at a point where I'm so clear about what we're doing. And we've started to develop our new program called the VIP method, where we support people building visibility, impact and profit. And again, that really is aligned with this mission that we're now on. And we're able to do that and really feel like, the values and the mission are matching the actions that we're taking. So that's a little bit more about the story and how the business and the brand has evolved. And it's been great because, the clearer I've been about the messaging and why we exist, the more opportunities are coming our way, more clients are coming our way, more universities and brands and people want to partner with us because they love what we're talking about, and more people want to join the community. And just to kind of, end on that storytelling piece, when we are super clear about not only what we do, but why we do it and how we're rebuilding the world the way we want it, to be, that really connects with people. That will connect with people who feel the same way. And if you're not evoking those feelings in the first place, there won't be that connection. And people connect emotionally when people tell their stories through the lens of purpose and values and their why. And so, and that's, it's so powerful.
It is a fascinating story. Thanks for sharing all of that. And I just wanted to ask, what advice you would have for people? So I think many people will really relate to what you said about this empathic distress hole and being on social media and seeing all the shit that's going on in the world and giving a shit and wanting to make a difference. But what if you're a business owner who, yes, you have your purpose, you want to make a difference in the world, but maybe you're a coach or maybe you're a sustainable fashion brand or something. How do you integrate activism and wanting to make a difference to all the stuff that's going on when it's not necessarily 100% directly related to your business? That's something I struggle with, and I think many people will struggle with, and I'd really love your insights on that.
Oh, it's such a good question. Yeah, so we literally just ran an event called Empowering Voices, Action for a Better World, where we raised £500 for War Child. And I collaborated with a group of amazing people, including Natasha, the founder of Brighton Wellness Festival. And this was exactly that kind of question. And also a question that comes up quite a lot in the VIP method, because people join because they want to have more impact, but they're like, but I'm an artist. And it's like, I think people assume that that needs to suddenly be their line of work in order for their work to be impactful, and it absolutely does not. And what we were talking about through this lens of empowering voices is you have a voice, you have privilege, you have a choice. You can use your voice, your platform, however big, however small, doesn't matter, to elevate voices of people who are activists,
Mm-hmm.
to elevate voices of those oppressed, to share information that educates people, that shows, hey, this is what I stand for because I'm sharing this information.
Mm-hmm.
I personally have never shared anything that has been too like graphic or traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen enough of that, and it's impacted my mental health beyond repair.
Yeah.
You know, I close my eyes at night and I see things that I just didn't know was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I choose to share things that either evoke not necessarily emotion, but like get people to take action,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll share factual stuff that will support people in making a better informed choice.
Mm-hmm.
Or when I can afford to, I will pay more than we do, because we always give 10% minimum of our profits to charities. We've got a number of different partners. When I see something, I'll share it and I'll donate. Or I'll see that, you know, a journalist has shared something, or someone in a specific place, I will also share that. And I think it's just about like engaging in whatever way feels safe enough for you. I don't think it's right to say, oh, well, you should go and protest, and you should donate here, and you should do that, because people might not have the physical ability to do that. You might be caring for people. You might not be able to afford the travel. You might not be able to afford to donate. But everyone has the ability to do something, even if it's incorporating what's important to you through the values and the storytelling that you do share, and saying, this is what I believe and this is how I do my bit. That might be engaging in petitions or sharing things once a month. That might be giving a very small portion of profit to charity. You know, if you do implement the profit first model as an example and take 5% every month, you could donate 1% of that, even if that's like a fiver. You know, there's always something that we can do. Yeah, and I think it's just about understanding, going back to that, like, what's your vision for the world? What's really important to you? Maybe it's animal welfare. Maybe it's like talking about animal charities and talking about, you know, all these amazing initiatives that are supporting animals who need care and attention. You know, it doesn't have to be like engaging in the worst genocides happening around the world and, you know, potentially feeling vulnerable. I do feel like if we have a voice and a platform, we should be using it to elevate voices. We should be using it to show what we believe in and where we stand. But I don't think there's no pointing the finger saying people should be doing X, Y, and Z, because everyone's situation is different. So I think, for example, just take one of the artists on my VIP accelerator at the moment. She said it was like a real light bulb moment when she realized it wasn't necessarily her day-to-day work, because she's an artist, and she was like, but I don't feel like my work's impactful enough. And I said, well, what do you believe in? What do you talk about? And she started talking about inequalities, and she was using International Women's Day as an example of how she felt we still had a really long way to go. And then we talked about the story that she tells through her artwork and how she believes that, you know, connection's really important. And then through her artwork and the commissions that she was doing, she was connecting people through illustration and art. And even that, you know, this is what I believe in, and this is how I'm making a difference in the world. And this is also what I believe in. And she had a massive debate. Like, she put this stuff online, and there was hundreds of comments.
Amazing.
How people were either agreeing with her or had, like, you know, slightly different takes on things. And sometimes it's not even about her. It wasn't about her illustration. It was about something she believed in, with a picture of her painting. So I think there's always something we can do, and there's always a way that we can be engaged. We just have to decide what that looks like to us based on what is important to us. So going back to that belief system and our vision.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. That's really inspiring. So if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, this is so tough. I mean, so much obviously has changed for me and anyone from the younger self. I mean, since then, I've built 3 businesses, and I've been diagnosed as a neurodivergent. And I think I've learned so much about myself. And if I could probably say anything, it would be trust your gut, trust yourself, forgive yourself for making mistakes. And know that if you lead with kindness and compassion, good things will happen. I think for a very long time, I did have this like nice guys finish last in my head, thinking, am I doing something wrong? Because I felt like I struggled a lot in my adolescence, and I was like, but I'm a good person. And this is why, you know, I suggested the title of the book, The Nice Guys Finish First, because we need people to lead with compassion and kindness. And it's, you know, it's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very cheesy.
And finally, what's a short story from your work that brings you joy?
I probably couldn't pick one. I think everything that I do brings me joy, which is probably a bit of a cop-out, but from seeing members in the community connect with one another, starting businesses, meeting up, sharing photos of them, having a coffee together, all the way through to light bulb moments from people on our programs who are implementing the stuff that we're kind of teaching them, and they're actually like picking up clients and realizing that they can do the work they do in a way that feels really easy and joyful. I think things like that are just amazing. I probably couldn't give one example, I'm afraid, which probably is a cop-out. Sorry, Sarah.
No worries.
And also just actually on the activism piece, being able to use my voice for good and actively seeing a difference in the way people show up as a result. So I think that's a really big thing as well, just like not underestimating all the tiny actions that you take and the ripple effect of what that means for other people.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I know you're an incredibly busy woman. You're incredibly inspiring. And just thank you so much for everything you shared with us today. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Lara is just so impressive, isn't she? And just a quick plug for her membership. It really is a fantastic place to meet inspiring women doing purposeful, creative and impactful work. In fact, it's where I met 3 other of the women who've already been guests on the pod, Esther, Kate and Shilpa. Okay, here are my 3 top takeaways. Number 1, share your story for purpose and profit. Your story needs to communicate super clearly what your mission is and what you are providing of value. And don't make the mistake of undervaluing your worth. Lara reminded us that doing meaningful, purpose-driven work isn't enough on its own. To create real lasting change, we must also focus on building profitable businesses. As she says, more money in the hands of good people means more power to create a better world. The more effectively you share your story, the more effectively you will sell. Number 2, your story connects you to your community. So in a crowded market, your story sets you apart. By sharing your journey openly and authentically, including the challenges and the messy parts, you create deep connections, build trust, and cultivate a community of superfans who believe in your mission and are inspired by your vision. Lara said she'd lost count of the number of times people have told her that they'd joined her community because they were inspired by her story. Number 3, there's always a way to share stories for building a better world. It doesn't matter what your business does. You can still use your platform to elevate voices of activists and those who are oppressed and to share what you stand for. You can engage in whatever way feels right for you. So it may be going on a protest, but it doesn't have to be. Whether it's donating a small percentage of profits, sharing educational content, or amplifying voices that matter, you don't have to do everything to make an impact. But one thing that we can all do is share our values and what we believe in through our storytelling. Lara showed us that even small, consistent actions can contribute to meaningful change over time. Thank you for joining me for this conversation with Lara. I hope you're leaving with a renewed sense of how purpose, storytelling and profit can come together to build not just a business, but to be part of a movement for a kinder, more supportive and equitable world. Make sure you check out the show notes for links to Lara's membership Found and Flourish, as well as some of the resources she mentioned. Also, I just wanted to remind you that if you are struggling to get clarity on your vision and values and how to craft your brand story, this is exactly what I can help with through my Uncover Your Story mentoring, and you can find all the details on my website. The link is in the show notes. As always, I would really appreciate any love you can give the podcast. So if today's episode resonated with you, please do leave a rating and comment, and perhaps think about who else in your life might appreciate listen and send them the link. And finally, just to let you know, this is the final episode of season 1. Thank you so much for being here. I can't tell you how much it meant to me when I launched the podcast and it landed at number 2 in the UK's podcast marketing chart. Your support and lovely feedback has been so appreciated. I'll be back next year with a new season, but now's an opportunity to catch up on any of the episodes you missed. And until next time, uncover your story, own it, share it, and shine.